ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति 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 ॐ तत्सत् ॐ नमः शिवाय
Om Namah Shivaya.
Okay, so let us chant the first khanda fully, including the Shanti Patha. I hope you got the text with you. We'll start with the Shanti Patha. Om Bhadram Karणे Vishnu Devaah.
Om Bhadram Karneshi Shrunuyama Devaha.
Please watch the swaras. As you know, the line at the bottom means you have to drop your tone one pitch. Bhadram Pashyema Akshabhiryajatra.
Bhadram
Pashyema Shubhirya Jatraha.
Sthirayangaye Stuštuvagum Sastunubhihi.
Sthirairangai Stuštuvagam Sastanubihi
Vyashema Deva Hitayadayuhu.
Vyashema Deva Hitayadayuhu.
The show has to go up. Vyashema Deva Hitayadayuhu.
Vyashema Deva Hitayadayuhu
Swastina Indro Vriddhashravah.
Swastina Indro Vriddhashravah.
Swastina Pusha Vishwavedah.
Swastina Pusha Vishwavedah.
Swastina Starksho Arishthanemihi.
Swastina Starksho Arishthanemihi.
Swastino Brahaspatir Dadhatu.
Swastino Brahaspatir Dadhatu.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Okay, so many of you are still to get the hang of the swaras. I think either Tanmay or Shivani can take one extra class on that, probably in the chanting classes. I had put on the swara-based chant of the Mundaka, which those of you logged in slightly earlier may have heard. So we can do that only if you are completely comfortable with this. Okay. So we had completed two mantras. Now let us chant the full first khanda. The normal chanting without the swaras. Om Brahma Devanam Prathamas Sambhabhuva.
Om Brahma Devanam
Vishwasya Karta Bhuvanasya Gopta.
Vishwasya Karta Bhuvanasya Gopta
Sa Brahma Vidyam Sarva Vidya Pratishtham.
Brahma Vidya Pratishtham
Atharvaya Jeshta Putraya Praha.
Atharvaya Jeshta Putraya Praha.
So there's something called Sama, you know, the when you Nothing must go fast, nothing must go slow. There must be a uniform pace. So for that, you have to be very comfortable with the words so that you don't try to jump over something too fast. Atharvaneyam pravadeta brahma. Atharva tam purovachangire brahma vidyam. Atharva tam purovachangire brahma vidyam. Sabharadvajaya satyavahaya praha. Bharadvajo angirase paravaram. Shaunako havai mahashalaha. Shaunako havai mahashalaha. There has to be a flow. Shaunako havai mahashalaha. Angirasam vidivadupasannah papracha. Kasminnu bhagavo vigyate. Sarvamidam vignatam bhavatiti. Somebody said bhavatiti, you know, that's what I'm saying. That should not be like that. Sarvamidam vignatam bhavatiti. Tasmai sahovacha. Dve vidye veditavye. Dve vidye veditavye. Itihasmayat brahma vido vadanti. Itihasmad brahma vido vadanti. Itihasmayad brahma vido vadanti. Parachaiva paracha. Tatra pararigvedo yajurvedah. Samavedo tharva vedah. Samavedo tharva vedah. Shiksha kalpo vyakaranam niruktam chando jyotishamiti. Shiksha kalpo vyakaranam niruktam chando jyotishamiti. Atha parayaya tadaksharam adhigamyate.
अथ
परायया
तदक्षरम् अधिगम्यते
यत् तदद्रेश्यम् अग्राह्यम् अगोत्रमवर्णम्
अगोत्रम् अवर्णम्
यत् तद अद्रेश्यम् अग्राह्यम् अगोत्रम् अवर्णम्
अदृश्यम् अग्राह्यम् अगोत्रम्
अवर्णम्.
So the conversion of the the letter into the next is very necessary. It is not tadreshyam. Tad adreshyam agrahyam agotram avarnam. Okay, this is the description of Brahman. So yat tadadreshyam agrahyam agotram avarnam.
तदृश्यम् अग्राह्यम्
अग्राह्यम्
अगोत्रम् अवर्णम्
Achakshushrotram tadapanipādam.
अचक्षुश्रोत्रम् तदपाणिपादम्
Nityam vibhum sarvagatam.
नित्यं
नित्यं विभुं
सर्वगतम्
Susukshmam tadavyayam.
सुसूक्ष्मं तदव्ययम्
Yadbhuta yonim paripashyanti dhiraha.
यद्भूतयोनिं परिपश्यन्ति धीराः
Yathornavisrjate gannate cha.
यथो नाभिसृजते च
Yatha पृथिव्यामोषधयः सम्भवन्ति.
यथा पृथिव्याम् औषधयः सम्भवन्ति
यथा सतः पुरुषात् केशलोमानि.
यथा सतः पुरुषात् केशलोमानि
तथा अक्षरात् सम्भवतीह विश्वम्.
तथाक्षरात् सम्भवतीह विश्वम्
तपसा चीयते ब्रह्म.
तपसा चीयते ब्रह्मा
ततो अन्नं भिजायते.
ततो अन्नं भिजायते
अन्नात् प्राणो मनः सत्यम्.
अन्नात् प्राणो मनः सत्यम्
अन्नात् प्राणो मनः सत्यम्.
अन्नात् प्राणो मनः सत्यम्
So the visarga turns into a half sa. Manas satyam.
मनः सत्यम्
Loka karmasu.
लोका कर्मसु
That visarga turns into what?
ख
Half ka. Okay, so let's do the whole thing again. Annat prano manas satyam.
अन्नात् प्राणो मनः सत्यम्
Loka karmasu chamritam.
लोका कर्मसु चामृतम्
Yas sarva yajna sarva vid.
यः
सर्वविद
Yasya jnanamayam tapaha.
यस्य ज्ञानमयं तपः
Tasmad etad brahma nama.
तस्मात् एतत् नाम
Rupamannam cha jayate.
रूपमन्नं च जायते
Iti prathama mundake prathama khandaha.
इति प्रथममुण्डके प्रथमखण्डः
Okay. So the idea is that we repeat it so many times that the words become clear to us, and therefore then when we do the the study, you don't have to worry about how the words break up. The same thing we did in the Gita also. Okay, so we had finished the first two mantras. Now we look at the third mantra. He
Sir,
says,
before you proceed, I have a basic question. Uday here. Hello.
somebody said something?
Sir, Uday here. I have a basic question before you proceed.
Yes.
What's the meaning of Mundaka?
Mundaka is, it can be taken as a head, basically.
Okay.
So I'll come to that when we explain.
Sure.
Okay. So he says, Shaunako Havai Mahashalaha Angirasam Vidivad Upasannaf Papracha Kasminnu Bhagavo Vignate Sarvam Idam Vignatam Bhavati Ti. This is what is said. What does it mean? Shaunakaha. So Shaunaka is a student. Shaunakaha Vidivad Upasanna approached the teacher Vidivad according to the Vidhi, according to the tradition laid down in the prescribed manner. So Upasanna means approached. Papracha asked. Okay. And who is Shaunaka? Mahashalaha. Mahashalaha means what? A person having a great hall. Mahashalaha. A person having a great hall, which is taken as a great householder. A person who is a great grihastha. And Mahashala indicates that he has done many rituals as prescribed for grihasthas. He came to this guru and he said, Kasmin no Bhagavo. What is that, O Lord? Bhagavo. He is addressing the Acharya as Bhagavan. So Kasmin no he Bhagavo. What is that, O Lord? Vignyate, having known which, Sarvam idam Vignatam bhavati. Everything else is known. Okay. So the question is, what is that, O Lord? Having known, all this becomes known. So he says, Sarvam idam, all this becomes known. So we look at it in detail now. This is the sixth Rishi. So far we have talked about the other Rishis in the Parampara, right? This is the sixth one. The sixth one is Rishi Angiras. Where do you get Angiras over here in this particular mantra? In the first line. Shaunako ha vai mahashalaha Angirasam. He has approached Angiras. Okay, Angiras is the Rishi. So Angiras taught this Brahma Vidya to Shaunaka. And from this particular mantra, this mantra is indicating the rules of approach. How do you approach a teacher also? So one should approach a teacher always. Rule number one. Never attempt self-study. And what was the verse in the Bhagavad Gita which talked about this?
In the fourth chapter.
Fourth chapter. Exactly. So Krishna also said you should never study by yourself. Always go to a teacher. Why? Because especially in the Upanishads, and of course even more so in the Puranas, we think that Puranas we need not go to a teacher, but that is also wrong, because the teachings are not explicit in the Puranas. They are all implicit teachings only, unlike the Upanishads where the teachings are very explicit. So if you have to go to the Guru to study the Upanishads, which are themselves explicit, how much more should you be going to a teacher to understand Puranas? Because all the teachings there have to be extracted. They are all by way of stories. Therefore, one has to understand from the teacher. So there are many things which otherwise confuse us. Why did Rama kill the gentleman from the back? Why did Rama kill Bali while hiding from him? Why did Rama send Sita to the forest? Why did Dronacharya ask for a finger? All these stories are there. We have to understand what the teaching is. So all scriptures, there is a Shastra. There is a Shastram called Mimamsa Shastra. Mimamsa meaning analysis. This Shastram tells us how to extract the teachings from the scriptures. It's a very explicit and very long text. It has 2000 odd sutras spread over more than 12 chapters. So 12 adhyayas with 2000 sutras. Anyway, so the learning from that is what is being explained here also, how we are to learn also. Now look at the words, Mahashalaha Angirasam. So Mahashalaha is the adjective for whom? For Shaunaka. Shaunaka Mahashalaha. Shaunaka is the name of the disciple, the student, and he says he's a Mahashalaha, great householder. So literally Mahashala means what? Great hall. And these halls, these shalas are used in yajnas. So what is being implied over here? That this Shaunaka was a great householder. He had done lots of yajnas, and therefore, because having done a lot of yajnas, therefore it is implied that he is sadhana chatushtaya sampannaha, that he has got chitta shuddhi, which means he has been successful in his grahasthashrama. And why do we say he has been successful in grahasthashrama? Because now he has come for knowledge. He has come to the teacher for knowledge. Then there's her and why. So Shaunaka, her, why. Her and why are particles basically used to indicate emphasis. Like we say in English, indeed or really. So these are particles used to indicate, to emphasize something. So indeed he approached. How did he approach? Vidhivad, according to the scriptural teachings. According to the prescribed manner he approached. Upasannaha means approached. Vidhivad means in accordance with the prescribed manner. And he came with what? Here it doesn't say, but it will say later, Samit Pani. Samit is a bunch of dry twigs, which is used for performing Vedic rituals. And traditionally, whenever you went to the teacher, you had to take something with you. And the Vedantic student usually carried these dry twigs. The dry twigs were useful to the teacher in his Gurukul because he could use them for lighting the fire for the Vedic rituals. And what is conveyed here is that you should never approach a teacher with empty hands. So there is a rule, there is a saying, Rikta Pani na gachet rajanam devatam gurum. Rikta Pani, with nothing in our hands. Na gachet, do not go. So with this empty hand, we should not go to whom all? Rajan, Devatam, Guru. To the king, to the gods, or to the teacher. So this also, because he's carrying this samit, the dry twigs, he is making some symbolic statements. What are they? Hey Acharya, hey Guru, I have successfully gone through the Karma Kanda. And therefore, this is indicated by the samit. It's a dry twig. And what does it mean? A dry twig will catch fire quickly. The student is saying that I am dried enough through detachment. My mind is ready to absorb the teaching. So Samit Pani here indicates the twigs in the hand indicate that he has got sadhana chatushtayam. He has got vairagya. Then the tradition dictates that once he comes to the teacher, he should hand over these twigs, the Samit, to the teacher and do Shashtanga Namaskara, complete prostration, indicating that, oh teacher, I am ready to receive your teaching. It's not over. After Namaskara, one step more is required. What is that?
Ask for the teaching.
Ask for the teaching. So Shashtanga Namaskara and Pariprashnaha. Ask questions with humility. So Pranipatena Pariprashnaha. Already covered in Bhagavad Gita, but being repeated here. Okay. Now, remember that I am teaching, but borrowing heavily from Bhashyam. Okay, like I am not giving you just the Moolam, just the meaning of the words and all that, because if I just give the meaning of the words, it look like I am saying it. And we don't want that happening, because we are not saying anything which is my interpretation. Every interpretation I am giving here is from the parampara only. And therefore, whichever words have to be given a meaning, I will borrow from Shankara Bhashya. Of course, I am not teaching the Bhashya in the sense that we are not doing it like we did in the Bhagavad Gita, Upasamhara. We are not reading out the Bhashyam and then taking the words. But generally, the meaning is being given. All meanings here, all interpretations here are being borrowed from Shankara Bhashya only. That is what to ensure the authenticity of the teaching. So here we find that Shankara raises an objection. Bhashyakara, will call him. He raises an objection. So he says, before Shaunakaha, the mantra itself says, earlier mantras say that other people have approached. What is the list? Atharva approached Lord Brahmaji. Angira approached Atharva. Satyavaha approached Angiraha. So what is the difference between the description there and the description here? Is there any difference given in the approach of these three guys to their teachers and Shaunaka to his teacher? What is the difference? You have to come having at least prepared the last class. What is the difference indicated in the approaches?
So the rishis got the teachings in their meditation.
No. I'm talking about the approach. The student approaching the teacher. There is a particular mention in this verse and there are particular mentions in previous verses. Is there a difference in the way of the approach?
Earlier once it said he taught. They did not really.
No.
Okay.
So here there is a mention of Vidhi, Vidhivad.
Oh, Vidhivad.
There's a mention of the Samit Pani in his hands. While in the case of Atharva coming to Brahmaji or Angira approaching Atharva or Satyavaha approaching Angira, there was no such mention. So Shankara says, does it mean that this Vidhi was not there earlier? The Vidhi, the prescribed rule of approaching the teacher was not there earlier. Okay. So he gives two answers. He says, it is possible that perhaps before Shaunaka, this Vidhi was not there. But starting from Shaunaka onwards, the Vidhi, the prescribed manner, came into existence. This is the first answer he gives. So he says in the Sanskrit words are Maryada Karanartham Visheshanaha. So Maryada is a borderline. So he says maybe this border starts with Shaunaka. Border means what? Earlier to the border, there was no rule. But after the border, which is after Shaunaka, the rule came into existence. That is one point of view. He gives another answer, which personally I prefer. So he says we can look at it from another point of view also. There is something called a Madhya Dehali Deepa Nyaya. What is Dehali? It's a Hindi word.
Delhi is the threshold.
Dehali is the threshold. So Madhya Dehali Deepa Nyaya. What does it mean? A lamp placed at the threshold of a door. It will cast light on both the sides. Is it not? So he says, while we are looking at it from Shaunaka's side, you must also remember that that lamp is casting a light on the other side also. And therefore it can be taken that the Vidhi was there earlier also. So this particular mantra can be taken as the lamp, showing that the Vidhi is being continued. It was already there earlier. So this is a better explanation because it says the prescribed approach was already there. So and look at it from this point of view, earlier also it was there. That is why the threshold. Okay. An interesting tidbit is this word Dehali is the origin of the word Delhi. Right?
Really, Acharya?
Yes. Why is it the origin of that word Delhi? You don't know your history.
I mean, Kurukshetra was there.
No, Delhi is the threshold from where the Muslim invaders attacked the rest of India. So Delhi, Dehali. Rashmi ji, Dehali न्याय का ख्याल रखिए आप. Okay, therefore, the statement Vidivad Upasanna is indicative of the fact that just as Shaunaka approached the teacher following certain prescribed rules, the earlier people also followed these rules. And Shankara makes a very cryptic statement here. It doesn't matter which interpretation you take. What is important? What is important is that those who come later after Shaunaka have to follow the rules. Vidhi has to be followed. The earlier mention was simply because the earlier statements were to point out the parampara, the tradition. And the simple answer is that yes, all those who approach the teacher did it vidhivat. And whichever interpretation you take, say Shankara, it doesn't matter because you are anyway bound by that rule. Whether the Atharva was bound by the rule or not, it doesn't matter because you are bound. Okay. So the question is, we are bound by the rule, we have to follow that rule. What is the question then? Kasmin bhagavo vijñāte sarvam idam vijñātam bhavati. O Lord, hey Bhagavan, kasmin vijñāte, by understanding what? Sarvam idam vijñātam bhavati. What is it in front of? Sarvam idam means what? By now you know what the word idam means. Idam means this.
This.
Sarvam idam means all this. All this means what in Shastra?
Entire knowledge.
All this
Brahman.
means Jagat.
Okay.
So what is it by knowing which I will know the entire universe? So eka karana jnanena sarva karya jnanam bhavati. By knowing that one cause, what is it that what is that one cause by knowing which I will know the entire universe? Whatever is there, I will know. I will know everything. Simply put, by knowing what one thing can I know everything? So that is the question. And here again, Shankara raises an objection. He says, how can Shaunaka ask this question? The use of the term kasmin, kasmin means what, implies what? See, it's like this, you know, if I'm going to ask you, what color is your car?
It's limiting something that is not limited.
No, if I'm going to ask you, hey, Tanmay, what color is your car? There is an
Come on.
implication that I know that you have a car.
Right.
Okay.
So Shaunaka says, how can, Shankara says, how can Shaunaka know? There is something knowing which everything else is known. Remember, Shaunaka is not asking, is there anything by knowing which I can know everything? Kasmin, what is that by knowing which I can know everything? Okay, the use of the term kasmin indicates that the knowledge of some entity exists and he's only inquiring about the nature of that entity. And Shankara himself answers by saying that, remember that the mantra says that he was Mahashalaha. Mahashalaha means what? He has studied the Purva Veda properly and performed the rituals and attained Chitta Shuddhi. And there must have been very many wise people and Pandits and all who have helped him in all his rituals. And among them, by simple talk, he must have known that there is a thing knowing which everything else is known. So he must have heard Upanadic statements of the Shruti, like Brahmavit apnoti paramam. The knower of Brahman attains the infinite. So this is a quote from Taittiriya Upanishad. Brahmavit apnoti paramam. Very famous, very big favorite of Shankaracharya, analyzed in Brahma Sutras. So such similar statements he must have heard. And therefore he knows that there is one material cause, knowing which all the products would be known. Just like by knowing gold as the Upadana Karanam, as the material cause for all ornaments, we know the nature of all of it. So Shankara says that yes, he must be aware in general that such an entity exists, and therefore he's asking for specifics. He knows the basic theory. So Shaunaka must be knowing the basic theory that the karanam alone, that the cause alone appears as many products or effects. It is eka karanam alone which appears as aneka karya, as manifold products or effects. What is the example? One lump of gold alone appears in the form of various ornaments. Your necklace, your ring, your bangle. Basically, it's all gold only. Similarly, one lump of clay appears as different pots or clay, whatever you make of clay. You can have clay plates, you can have clay pots, you can have clay drinking jugs. Whatever it is, the karanam is the clay, the various products are the karya. And therefore, Shankara says, understand the phrase, kasminnu vignate sarvam idam vignatam bhavati iti. Has to be understood very carefully. So what question can we ask? If you know Brahman, let us assume that you become a jnani and know Brahman. Will you be able to repair your washing machine?
No, that is Vyavaharika and it won't be useful for that.
Okay, so that is why the two words used in Shastra. One is Sarvajnaha and one is Sarvavit. Sarvajnaha, Sarvavit. Two words which are very important. Sarvajnaha is the knowledge that is a very specific knowledge. A person who is Sarvajnaha, he knows what? Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Anybody who knows Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya and Aham Brahma, all have to be combined. He knows that everything is Brahman and I am that Brahman. Everything which is not me is Mithya. A very confusing statement. If everything is Brahman, then where is the difference between Satyam and Mithya?
Actually, here is where the Paramarthika and Vyavaharika comes into play.
Here is where Paramarthika and Vyavaharika comes. To put it very simply, the necklace is gold, but the gold is not the necklace. Are you able to follow the implication of that? The pot is clay, but the clay is not the pot. How do you understand?
Brahman
No,
is Jagat, but
first tell me with the pot and the clay or the gold and the necklace.
the ornament is gold, but the gold is not ornament.
Why?
Because a lump of gold can be just gold.
Okay. What is the difference then?
Because the bangle is
Nama Rupa.
dependent on the.
Exactly. The bangle is dependent on the gold, but the gold is not dependent upon the bangle, which means the gold can either remain as gold, or it can remain as bangle, or it can remain as necklace. And therefore, it is why you can say that Jagat is Brahman, you cannot say Brahman is Jagat. Okay, that is why Satyam and Mithya concepts are there, even though everything is Brahman alone. Okay, this is Sarva Yajna. Sarvajna, one who knows everything in general. That is the meaning in which the word Sarvajna is used. Then the meaning is, the other word is Sarvavit. Sarvavit is a knower of everything in detail. So if you want to repair a washing machine, you have to be a washing machine with. Okay, washing machine with. You have to know the details of the washing machine. You need not be a Sarvajna. But you can't be a Sarvavit. You can be a washing machine with, you can be a computer with, you can be a laptop with, but nobody can be Sarvavit. Because Sarvavit means what? With, remember, is implying that everything in detail is known. Means the entire construction you can do, repair you can do. You will know how to put together a laptop. You will know how to repair a laptop. If you can do that, you are a laptop mechanic or a laptop with. So if you apply that to Sarvavit means what?
Vyavarika knowledge.
The knower of everything that is knowable.
Knower of everything in detail, which means the person who can bring into being, construct everything, starting from the washing machine to the universe.
Okay.
That can only be Ishvara. Why? Because Sarvavit means you need an antakaranam to know. You need a mind to know anything. And therefore, Ishvara is got a cosmic mind. Because of that, he is Sarvavit. So only Ishvara can be Sarvavit. The Jnani cannot be Sarvavit. Jnani can be Sarvagnya. Sarvagnya meaning he knows Brahman, he knows Satyam, he knows Mithya. But he cannot be Sarvavit. So these two words have to be very carefully understood. All of us can aspire to be Sarvagnyas, but you cannot aspire to be Sarvavit. Because from the viewpoint of the Upadhi, our mind is limited. It can know everything in detail of only a few things. And only Ishvara can know everything in detail of all things. Therefore, the term Sarvavit enables us to appreciate Ishvara as limitless. Is that clear? The difference? Any questions?
Acharya, very often, even Ishvara is one of the very varied descriptions is Sarvagnya.
Yeah.
In
Ishvara Sarvagnya anyway.
and Sarvavit. And I mean, he is everything possibly that one can be.
Yeah.
But that is not the truth for a Jnani.
It is not, because Sarvavit means mind is there.
Right.
Right. Okay. So from this now we can get the answer to that question. Kasminnu vijñāte sarvamidam vijñātam bhavati iti. So the answer to the teaching is essentially going to be what? Brahma karanam jagat karyam. Brahman is the cause and jagat is the product. Now again, one more thing is, in Shruti, in Upanishads, you will find that Brahman and Ishvara are used interchangeably. There are very few mantras where the description is brought out. Maya is separate, Prakriti is separate. But generally when we talk, you have to look at the context and try to figure out, is it Brahman, pure Brahman I'm talking about? Or is it pure Ishvara? Or sometimes when I'm using Ishvara, is it Brahman I'm talking about? So that you have to remember. Whenever we talk about Brahman as Jagat Karanam, we say Brahman Jagat Karanam. What is it that is being referred to?
Ishvara.
Why?
Because Brahma doesn't do anything. It is only Saguna Ishvara, which then brings creation into play.
Okay, so remember the discussion in Bhagavad Gita long ago about the two different types of Karanam. What are they? Upadana Karanam and
Nimittak.
Nimitta Karanam. Even in Upadana Karanam, there are two types. What is that? Upadana Karanam was further divided into two types.
Vivarta
Vivarta Upadana Karanam and
and
Parinami
Parinami.
Upadana Karanam.
Yeah.
So Vivarta Upadana Karanam means the cause does not change.
Change.
Parinami Upadana Karanam means that cause changes. Now, when you talk of Brahman as Jagat Karanam, you can look at, if you are talking about the unchangeable part, then you are talking about Brahman as Vivarta Upadana Karanam. But if you are talking about the changeable part, you may say Brahman. But the Parinami Upadana Karanam for the universe is what?
Ishvara.
Maya.
Maya.
Maya is the material cause. Remember that Maya is the material cause. What is the verse from Bhagavad Gita which gives you that changing nature of Maya? Chapter 2. Guys, we are in Upanishads. Avyaktadini bhutani vyaktamadhyani bharata avyaktani dhananyeva tatraka paridevana. Changing is always changing. So that is talking about Maya. Okay. Now, let us, for example, let us for the discussion, purpose of discussion, take the ghata, the pot. And the Sanskrit name for clay is what? Mrid. Mrid. So mrid is clay and ghata is the pot. Clay and pot we're taking. Let us try to figure out what are the important features of Karanam, the cause, and what are the important features of Karyam, the product. So in this example, clay is the Karanam and pot is the Karyam. Clay is the cause, pot is the effect. So the first important thing is that Karanam is always one, Karyam is always many. So Karanam ekam, Karyam anekam. Clay, the lump of clay is one, the Karyam, the pots can be many. That is the first one. Okay, the first feature. What is the second feature? Before production of the pot, before origination of the pot did not exist, but the clay existed. What is the lesson from this? Let me rephrase the statement. Before origination of the pot, only clay existed. After destruction of the pot, only clay existed.
The clay is constant. It has no beginning or end.
And therefore,
it has no karanam.
No, that's okay. But you have to talk about both. We are doing comparison. You have to talk about Karanam and Karya. We have to talk about clay and the pot. Okay, you still to get into the flow of this. Okay, right. The first lesson, second lesson is that Karyam, the pot, has a date of arrival and a date of departure, and therefore it is temporary, anityam. But the clay was there before the pot, the clay is there during the pot, clay is there after the pot. Therefore, clay is permanent, pot is temporary. Second statement. Karanam nityam, karyam anityam. Okay, the first one is what? Karanam ekam, karyam anekam. Karanam is one, karyam are many. Second one is Karanam is eternal, Karyam is temporary. Okay, now something which we have not discussed before, the third part. When the pot was made, the clay remained as the pot. To the already existing clay, nothing was added. Okay, there was a lump of clay, it was shaped into a pot. And therefore, there was no addition of any other material. So therefore, clay remained in the already existing in the existing piece as clay, it was clay. In the freshly created pot, it was clay. And the destroyed pot, also it was clay. All that changed was the form or the shape was added. Form or the shape has no substance, and therefore to this changed form a new name is given. It is the clay only, but originally we called it clay. After converting it into a particular shape capable of holding water, we are now calling it by a new name, which is that pot. How do you know? If I ask you what is the weight of the pot, the weight that you give me is only the weight of the clay. If I tell you that from the weight of the pot, you take out the weight of the clay, what is the weight? There is no weight at all. It cannot have weight because there is no substance called a pot. When I lift the pot, I am lifting the clay alone. So this is substantiality. The substantiality belongs to the clay and not to the pot. So in Sanskrit, what is substantial is called saram. Or in Hindi also, saram means the essence. So whatever is substantial in a particular object is saram, and whatever is non-substantial is the reverse of that, asaram. And therefore the third thing is karanam saram, karyam asaram. Any question? Three things.
It's basically talking about the property. The property of the pot is the same as the clay. That hasn't changed, only the form has changed.
Yeah, substance is only one.
Right.
That is what it is saying.
Right.
So karanam ekam, karyam anekam, karanam nityam, karyam anityam, karanam saram, karyam asaram. So far three. Okay. The fourth one, when I say a pot exists, what really exists is the clay alone. Without the clay, the pot cannot exist. And therefore we say that existence of the pot is borrowed from the clay, because the form of the pot has no existence without the clay. And if the form has no existence without the clay, the name of the name pot can be used only when the pot form exists. And therefore, to generalize, neither the name nor the form pot has an existence without the clay. So the isness, as they call it, in brackets is, isness, belongs to the clay and not to the pot. This is we are saying that Karanam has got independent existence. Karyam does not have independent existence. That existence is borrowed from Karanam alone. What are the technical words for this?
Satyam and Mithya.
Karanam Satyam, Karyam Mithya. Okay. So, Eka Nitya Sara Satya. That is Karanam. Eka Nitya Sara Satya. Karanam. Aneka Anitya Asara Asatya. Karyam. In short, to make a small little rhyme out of it. Eka Nitya Sara Satya. Karanam. Aneka Anitya Asara Asatya. Karyam. Therefore, Brahman is what? Ekam, Nityam, Saram, Satyam. And Jagat is Anekam, Anityam, Asaram, Asatyam. So, world has got beauty, variety, novelty, but what is missing is stability. And therefore, whatever is unstable, we can never hope to get security from an unstable object. Wherever there is no security, there is no peace. this is the explanation of the third mantra. Any questions on that? Or else we can go to the fourth. You need to exercise your thinking powers, because each, as I said before also, in Gita you can still hope to understand what is going on without connecting with the previous classes, but here you can't. So every class that you come, you must read your summaries till that date and then come. Then only you get the full benefit of the class. Okay, so if no questions, we'll go on to the next one. Next one.
Acharya,
Yes, please.
in short, we mean the question he put ki knowing which nothing else is to be known.
Yeah.
So knowing that Satya or infinite, everything else is known. That
Yeah, but
the
known
every
in the
infinite.
general way. That's what I said. Known meaning that what is Satyam and what is Mithya will be known.
Okay.
But you won't be able to repair your car. So that
Right.
everything else has to be understood as Sarvagnya, not Sarvavit. That was the point I was trying to make.
Actually, that's actually a very good point, because it's good to know that. And it puts Vyavaharika and Paramarthika very clearly once again for perhaps, those who, for anyone who hasn't grasped it.
Yeah, because once I was asked in the TTC that can a jnani do everything? Because he's a jnani, Sarva jnani.
He doesn't do anything, first of all.
Yeah, first of all, he won't do anything.
Yeah.
But he is not capable of also, right? Because he will
He
know
doesn't
only
care about it,
Brahma
because
Satyam Jagan Mithya.
Yeah.
Okay. So important to know that as jnanis, don't expect to be able to create the universe.
Yeah.
We say that I and Ishvara are not different. But you can't create a universe. You can't even create a cockroach. Forget about the universe. Right? Why? Because your mind is limited. Your upadhi is limiting you. That is the Tattvamasi part of it, which sooner or later we'll do. Okay, so Tasmai Sahovacha, this is the fourth mantra. Tasmai Sahovacha, Dve Vidye Veditavye Iti Hasma Yad Brahma Vido Vadanti Para Chaiva Para Cha. So Tasmai means to him. Sa Ovacha, to him he said. To whom said?
To Shaunaka, Angira said.
Shaunaka Angira said. So this is the style of the Upanishad. You have to supply all this. Tasmai means to Shaunaka. Sa means Angiras. Hovacha, he said. What did he say? Dve vidye veditavye. There are two types of vidya which should be acquired. Veditavya means which should be known. Two types of knowledge to be known. What is that? Iti, that. Iti, yat, sma. Particles. Sma is a particle. Brahma Vidaha, those who know Brahman, Vadanti says, Para cha, apara cha. So to him, to Shaunaka, Angiras said, there are two kinds of knowledge to be known, namely para and apara. And very humbly he adds, I am not saying Brahma Vido Vadanti. The knowers of the Brahmavid is the knower of the Brahman. Brahmavit, the one who knows Brahman, Vadanti, they say. All jnanis say that there are two types of knowledge which you should know. One is para and one is apara. We already talked about para apara earlier, right? Where was that? Where have we talked para and apara? Bhagavad Gita.
7.
Chapter 7.
What was para there and what was apara there?
Apara is the Jagat.
Remember, it was not apara vidya and para vidya over there. What was it?
Jnana Vigyan.
It was Paraswarupa. and apara swarupa. The higher nature of the Lord and the lower nature of the Lord. The higher nature being Brahman, the lower nature being the Maya. So here don't get confused. Para, apara words are used, but they are adjectives to Vidya, not to nature. So Paravidya and Aparavidya, higher knowledge and lower knowledge. Okay. So the teacher feels here that Brahma Vidya is very subtle, requires a lot of preparation of mind. Why? Because Aparavidya deals with the universe, with all the products, with Jagat. Because if Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, Brahma Karanam Jagat Karyam. Brahman is the cause and Jagat is the product. And the product is gross and concrete and visible to us. Karyam is gross and concrete. But the Karanam Brahman is not available to sense organs. And therefore, if you have to be able to understand Karanam Brahman, your mind has to be prepared and sensitized, become sensitive enough to be able to follow. So, Aparavidya is all the discipline which is required for coming to Paravidya. So, Paravidya Vedanta, Brahma Jnanam, and Aparavidya here refers to Veda Purva, all the previous knowledge. So, we'll refine on the concept just now. Okay, what I'm telling you is just preliminary. Upar se. So, he says, Dve Vidye Veditavye iti hasma yadaha. There are two types of knowledge, it is said. Dve Vidye Veditavye. Two types of knowledge. Literally speaking, Veditavya means should be known. So question can come, how do you know? Vidya Veditavya means know the knowledge. So how could you know the knowledge? That is the question. But Upanishad this is. And therefore, Veditavya has to be understood not as knowing knowledge, but as acquiring or gaining knowledge. So Dve Vidya Veditavya. Two types of knowledge have to be acquired. What are they? Para, cha, apara, cha. Para and apara. Higher and lower knowledge. Now, apara vidya, remember, consists of, very broadly, of three main subjects. Dharma, adharma. What is dharma? What is adharma? Then, tat sadhan. What is the sadhana which will cause you to get, or rather, what is sadhana with which you will implement dharma, and what is sadhana, what is the discipline, or what is the way of action which can be said to be adharmic. So dharma, adharma, tat sadhana, and tat phalam. So what is dharma, adharma you should know. And once you know dharma, adharma, you will automatically know what are those sadhanas, what are those karmas which you are doing, which are dharmic and which are adharmic, and tat phalam. You should also know what are the respective consequences of each of those actions. Why is he saying that? Because any knowledge is complete only when you understand three things: nature, cause, and result of the object being studied, of the particular topic being studied. So any topic here, you have to know the nature, you have to know the cause, and you have to know the result. And by the very terms, dharma, adharma itself, which part of Veda are we referring to? Veda Purva, Karma Kanda. And therefore, entire Apara Vidya is Veda Purva. Okay. So he says, Ve Vidye Veditavye. You should know that there are two answers. Now, a question should come here. What should the question be? The teacher is supposed to answer the student. So that should give you a question over here. What is the question? What did Shaunaka ask for?
He asked for that one thing knowing which we can know everything that is to be known.
Okay. So he asked for which Vidya? Para, apara?
He asked for para.
Why is the teacher Angiras talking about apara Vidya?
Because not everyone is qualified to
Yeah.
understand Paravidya.
So Shankara gives the answer over here. He says, no, the teacher has answered correctly. Because Paravidya means the main Karanam. Karanam Brahman. Okay. But why should Aparavidya be introduced? He says it's relevant. Because Aparavidya covers karma and upasana. And karma and upasana have to be introduced here. Because while it is true that Paravidya alone will give knowledge, Paravidya can be attained only when the mind is prepared. Hence, the preparatory stage for coming to knowledge is Aparavidya only, and therefore it is appropriate to introduce Aparavidya here. And we can give an example. Supposing I go to a restaurant and ask for idlis, what will come?
Idli with sambar.
No. Anybody else?
Water first and then
Yes, water first and then?
and then the idli, sambar, chutney, etc.
No, then the
Oh.
plate will come.
Oh yeah. Well,
See, so if you go to a restaurant and ask for idli, the waiter will first bring in the plate. You don't yell at him, right? Because you need the plate to eat the idli. So similarly, if you want to come to Paravidya, you have to come to Aparavidya first. And Shankara here, of course, gives a more complicated reason. Okay, he says Aparavidya occurs at the beginning of the Veda. So everybody enters Karma Kanda first. And some of them also think that Karma Kanda gives you moksha. Not knowing that Karma Kanda can help you fulfill only the first three Purusharthas, but not the fourth one. And therefore, it is the job of the Acharya. Acharya has two jobs. The teacher has two jobs. One is to remove the misconception that Karma Kanda can give moksha, and then to give the knowledge of Jnana Kanda, which will give moksha. And so Shankara says it is appropriate for Apara Vidya to be introduced. Why? Because the misconceptions about Apara Vidya have to be first removed. Once that is done, then only can you give the jnana. Otherwise, the foundation is not strong enough. And therefore, Shankara is presenting a rule over here. In the rule is as far as all studies are concerned. He says the teacher has to first present the contentions of the Purva Pakshis. Whatever the Purva Pakshi says has to be first presented. And then the teacher has to negate them. And at the third stage only, he can present the views of Vedanta. So first Purva Pakshi, negation of Purva Pakshi, and then present Siddhanta, your own teachings. Why? Because when wrong ideas are negated, then the correct idea can be presented and understood immediately. And therefore he says, Aparavidya is presented here only for the purpose of negating it. Therefore, language, grammar, rituals, tarka, everything is important. To understand the pot, the clay, the relationship with all the tools, these are all important. And Shankara says, learn to distinguish what is logical and what is illogical. And for that, Tarka Shastra, Aparavidya is important. And hence, whenever we study, we'll find that first Purva Paksha is introduced. Then there is Khandanam, negation of Purva Paksha. And then there is Siddhanta, the view of the Vedantic. This is the method of exhaustive study. So what is the misconception which Karma Kanda has. He says that introducing Karma Kanda is for the purpose of removing misconceptions. So the biggest misconception that Karma Kandis have is that karma and upasana, that is bhakti, can give moksha. And Shankara says, no, that has to be first negated. And so he says, apara vidya hi avidya. He says, apara vidya is as good as avidya. Because apara vidya deals with karma and upasana, both of which belong to Vyavaharika, both of which belong to duality, Dvaitam, both of which are Dvaita Vidya, belonging to the realm of Vyavaharika. And therefore, both are Satyam or Mithya.
They're mithya because there is one me and one Ishwar.
Both are Dvaita, both are Mithya. So karma, upasana, both are Mithya. Therefore, Karma Kanda is based on what? I am Karta. The very fact I am Karta is based on avidya. And aparavidya does not remove this avidya. In fact, by encouraging us to do karma and upasana, it only strengthens this avidya. And therefore, aparavidya is taught in the beginning to reveal its limitations.
In fact, it implies that you are the karta and you are the bhokta. This vidhi is for you to attain to svarga, and which
Exactly.
implies
So it
kartritva.
strengthens the kartrutva. And therefore, it is as good as avidya. It is aparavidya avidyahi. Any aparavidya is avidya only.
Raviji, this is the same approach they have taken even in Tattvabodha. You first
Yeah.
answer what is anatma, then you come to what is atma.
See, remember, when we always say there is a method, a sampradayic method of presentation, right? What is that method? To use technical terms, anybody? What is the method you used in any shastra?
Adhyaropa apavada.
Adhyaropa apavada. Adhyaropa is superimposition. Apavada is negation. That is the typical method used in any textbook. What is superimposed here? Jagat is being superimposed. Why? Because Jagat is concrete. And once you remove all the misconceptions about the Jagat, then only you can, on that foundation, which is strengthened because of the removal of the misconceptions, then only you can plant your Paravidya. Okay. Anybody? Questions? All right. So do we want to continue today, one more verse, or do we just stop?
Sure, we have time till 12:30, so.
We have time. So let us chant. No, we have chanted the other verse also. So verse number 5, you look at. So he says, Tatra para rigvedo yajurvedah samavedo tharvavedah. Shiksha kalpo vyakaran miruktam chando jyotishamiti. Atha para yaya tad aksharam adhigamyate. Okay, so tatra, there. There means where, among all those vidyas. Apara is the lower vidya. Tatra apara vidya. What are they? Among those two vidyas, tatra apara vidya. What is that? Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, Atharvaveda, Shiksha, Kalpaha, Vyakaranam, Niruktam, Chandaha, Jyotisham iti. These are the apara vidya. Okay. So, Shiksha. Shiksha is what? Phonetics. The science of phonetics. How to pronounce the words. Kalpa. Kalpa is not the kalpa, which means time. Kalpa means the rules about the rituals, how rituals are to be carried out. Vyakaranam is grammar. Niruktam is etymology, how do you derive a particular word? What is the dhatu? What is the prefix? What is the suffix? How do you arrive at a particular word? That is called niruktam, etymology. Chandaha, the science of metrics. How do you compose the meter of the particular verse? Okay. Jyotisham, astrology. Then atha means now. So that is the lower knowledge. Now he talks atha. Now, yaya, that by which, aksharam, beyond that, aksharam is immortality, adhigamyate, that which adhigamyate leads to aksharam, to immortality, that is called paravidya. Okay. So let's look at what it means. Lower knowledge, aparavidya, consists of what already say 4 Vedas. Rig Veda, Samaveda, Yajurveda, Atharva Veda. The other 6, Shiksha, Kalpa, Vyakarana, Nirukta, Chanda and Jyotisha, they are called Veda Angas. Parts of the Veda, Veda Angas. So 10 sources of knowledge. 4 Vedas, 6 Veda Angas, all are classified as aparavidya. And he says the higher knowledge, paravidya, which leads to immortality, that by which you are led to immortality, that is called paravidya. Okay, so we will come to that. So Veda Purva gives 2 disciplines to prepare for the mind. We all know Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga. And then he gives the list of all the Vedas, Rig Veda. So Rig Veda is one of the Vedas where in fact, the majority of all the mantras are in poetic form and have got very clear meters. There's no duschanda, as they call it, difficult meter. So all meters are very clear in Rig Veda. Then there is Yajurveda. Majority of the mantras are in prose form. Then there is Samaveda. Majority of the mantras are set to music. So it is also called Gana Rupa or Gita Rupa. That's why the word Samaganam comes from there. Samaganam is mantra which are set to music. Then Atharva Veda. They have got mantras revealed by a rishi called Atharva. Who is Atharva Rishi? Have you heard of him?
Yes, Acharya, in this chapter.
In the first verse, Atharvaya Jeshtaputraya Praha. Okay, so Atharva Rishi is the first student of Lord Brahmaji in this very Upanishad. So Paravidya is Karanam Vidya. Aparavidya is Karya Vidya. When I say Karya Vidya, it means Karya Prapancham, the Jagat. Aparavidya relates to universe. Paravidya relates to Karanam, which is Brahman. Okay. So Tatra Para, Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, Atharva Veda is the 4 Vedas. Now, to be able to acquire Paravidya, what is required? One has to acquire the capacity for proper thinking, rational thinking. That is number 1. That is not sufficient. One has to acquire the capacity, acquire emotional maturity. Unless you're emotionally mature, which means what? FIR is low. Unless that FIR is low, even if you are very good rational thinker, Paravidya will not come your way. And therefore, Aparavidya is first presented. And he talks about 6 different Vedangas. 4 Vedas he said are Paravidya. And he talks about the Vedangas. So, Shiksha, it deals with the pronunciation of the letters, the Varnas, right? So, remember that a letter is not the sound. A letter is the description, the written representation of a sound. The sound is the Varna, not the alphabet. It's a distinction which you need to know. The alphabet we say is different from the Varna. Varna means the sound. Siksha here deals with the sound and the alphabet, because sound has not only intonation, It has got swara also. We talked about this. Pitch is there, swara, phonetics is there. Then how you intone, that is there. Therefore, how to pronounce the Veda mantras have to be known. And to know that, we have to know what all consonants, vowels, then the accents. So anudata, udata, swarita, dirgha swarita. We talked about this in the very beginning. Then one should know what are these short vowels called hrisva, and the dirgha, the long vowels, and the elongated vowels. What are they called? I think somebody would have taken this class. I had taken it once, but I'm sure Tanmay has taken it also. Short vowels, long vowels, elongated vowels. What is the elongated vowel called?
Pluta.
Pluta. So you have Hrisva, Dirgha, Pluta. And the important thing about Sanskrit is it is a phonetic language. Alphabets are pronounced the same way in which they are written. In fact, the other way around. They are written in the same way that they are pronounced. That is Shiksha. Then there is Kalpaha. Kalpa deals with the performance of the Vedic rituals. So different mantras are used for different homams, different occasions. And I should know which mantra to use for which occasion. So it provides me with the knowledge of what is to be done and what is to be not done on various occasions. And because of all the thousands of rules, I need to follow the discipline. I need to conform. So conform to the rules. And later on, this conforming, this doing what is right and avoiding what is wrong, it becomes natural. In the beginning, when one conforms to a discipline, you feel a sense of restriction. Why am I doing all this? Just because Veda says so. But as one begins to live the life on the basis of Dharma Shastram, one begins to work within the guiding principles and not on the basis of your Ragadvesha. So that is the advantage. You learn to overcome the Ragadvesha. The Vyakaranam, grammar, especially of Vedic grammar. So Sanskrit knowledge is divided into classical Sanskrit and Vedic Sanskrit. I don't know if anybody studies it, but there's a separate grammar available for Veda called Vaidika Vyakaranam. So grammar helps to understand the words, the etymology, and the meaning conveyed by the sentences. Then Niruktam, science of deriving the Vedic word from the grammatical roots. So Vedic etymology. Then Chandaha, study of Vedic meters. What is the meter? The pattern of rhythm and the sound, which is used to create the structure. It's a poetic structure. So you'll find that some mantras are in poetic form in different meters. Study of all these meters is called Chanda Shastra. For example, Gayatri, we think of it as the name of a mantra, but actually Gayatri is the name of the Vedic meter. 3 lines, each line having 8 letters, 24 letters in each line. It's called Gayatri. The original name of Gayatri actually is what? Anybody knows? Gayatri mantra?
Savitra.
Savitri mantra. Savitri mantra is the original name, not Gayatri. It is called Gayatri because it belongs to the Gayatri Chanda. Then Jyotisham, Vedic astrology. Again, there are 2 types. One is predictive astrology, used to predict the future. But what is more important to Vedikas is Vaidika Jyotishastram. It is reading the calendar, the Hindu calendar. So Western calendar takes a month as 4 weeks, or maybe sometimes a little bit more than that. But in our Hindu calendar, we take a month as 2 fortnights of 15 days. One is a bright fortnight, when the moon is waxing, and one is the dark fortnight, when the moon is waning. So if you see your Indian calendars, you will find Prathama Tithi. It is the first day of the waxing or the waning moon. And Prathama Tithi, Dvitiya Tithi, Tritiya Tithi. Days are counted from the day the moon begins to wax or wane. So 15th day therefore becomes either what? Full moon, fully visible, or new moon. What is the difference between full moon and new moon? Aha, we got into astrology now.
Actually, full moon is when the full moon is visible, and the new moon is when the moon is the first day after Amavasya,
Yes.
when
Moon is not visible.
yeah.
Okay, so if you look at it from technically, in the full moon day, the position is sun, earth, moon. And on the new moon day, the moon is between the sun and the earth, and therefore cannot be seen, as the side facing the earth is in complete darkness. Okay, so this is basically, this is the Vaidika Jyotish Shastra, predominantly astronomy, not astrology. The astrological part is used to find remedial measures, pratiharam as we call it. What are the problems going to be in life? How can I sort them out? This is the astrological part. While the other part is for performing rituals, because Vedic rituals need to be performed at the right time for the proper efficiency. And therefore, Apara Vidya is 4 Vedas plus 6 Veda Angas. All the Angas are Veda Angas. Veda is called the Angi. And therefore, they are grouped with the Veda itself. What is it? When all the 6 Veda Angas are being grouped with Veda in this mantra, what is it indicating? That the Veda Angas are also sacred for Vaidika. For that matter, for Vaidika, everything is sacred. There is the word secular cannot exist in the dictionary of Vaidika. Why? Sarvatra Brahma Dasha. Brahmarpanam Brahmahavi. And interestingly enough, if you look at the Sanskrit dictionary, you will find that there is no equivalent for the word secular. There are only 2 words. Laukika, Vyavaharika, Vaidika. Vaidika connected with Veda, but Laukika is also sacred. So with this, we'll stop today. The para part of it, we will take up in the next
Acharya,
class.
just would like one clarification. When they're talking about the Vedas here, they're talking about Veda Purva again, because Veda Anta is Para.
That's the discussion we'll have in the next
Okay.
class.
Okay.
No, but to answer your question, you're talking about both Vedanta and Veda Purva. Both are considered as Apara Vidya. At least this mantra says so.
Okay.
Why it says so, we have to analyze. Okay, any questions, please?
Acharya, is it because the Veda Anta itself won't give you that knowledge or something like that? Is that why?
Exactly.
Okay.
If Vedanta was going to make you a jnani, then every Veda teacher in college is a jnani, right? He's not.
Yeah. Understood, Acharya. Okay.
In fact, this is an objection used by Purva Pakshi, saying that Vedanta cannot give you jnanam, because if Vedanta could give you jnanam, every pandit would be a jnani, which is not.
Right.
Okay. Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your
Thank you
patience,
so much.
guys.